Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is March 28, 23. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here today with Gabriel Kennedy. Where in the heck you calling in from, dude?
Hey, Jerry. I'm presently in Baldwin Park, Los Angeles, California.
I like that. What's the best thing for a human being?
Love.
I get that answer a lot. I like that answer.
Yeah.
What is your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
Oh, man. Favorite form. Um, Organic and holistic, where I can see it, read it, and watch it demonstrated. Um, but in terms of raw information, favorite form, I have my most common form, which is probably from the internet, but I don't know if that's my favorite form. Maybe storytelling, maybe listening to a good storyteller. Maybe that could be my favorite form. And music.
That's pretty cool. You covered a few senses there: see it, read it. Let's just veer off on reading for a second. Did you become a reader more because your parents read to you? They read as an example, or on your own?
Well, I know my mother, she read to me when I was young. I did enjoy that. Um, but becoming like a serious reader now, that was a step I took. Um, I felt like I took it on my own when I was around 14. No, actually, when I was around 16, and just the desire to, see what books were really all about, instead of just, nice colors on a bookshelf.
That's good. Yeah, you don't have to read books. All you have to do is have them on your shelf and read the titles. That's what I always say.
Mhm.
Okay, so why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Well, I think, you know, it probably obviously started out for survival. Um, and then for, um, strategy, their own thought of survival with when things become a little more abstracted. Um, and so to win, when one is engaged in some sort of competition. So survival, strategy, and then entertainment, art, for
Yeah.
people to gather information and put it together in a way that keeps things open and not so binary as a winner and a loser, but somehow keeps this notion of being surprised and um, entertained going. So
Yeah.
information can be gathered and structured to keep a good story going.
It's good. Is this need or want to collect information or gather it more innate or more invented?
I think it's innate in the structure of the mammals or
Yeah.
anything with a brain.
Yeah.
I think, or anything that resembles a brain. So observing animals and just how a beaver builds a dam, and
Yeah.
how a spider creates its web, and how mosquitoes have such ability to evade and elude your swatting hand,
Hey,
like
how did they do that? You used to, did you ever catch a mosquito biting you and you tighten your muscle so you can hold it till the mosquito explodes?
no.
Oh, dude, try it. I mean, you can hold it and it can't get it out, and
Mm.
then eventually they always win, and you let up and he's gone.
Oh man, that sounds very Cronenberg-esque. Yeah,
It's
exploding
sick.
mosquitoes.
I like animals. I don't want to hurt them, but anyways, you think you wonder, do mosquitoes really have? Okay, so do thoughts create emotions?
Do thoughts create emotions? I mostly tend to think not really. Uh, but I'm one to change my mind on these big subjects, depending on, you know, uh, where I'm at the time of day. But thinking, do thoughts create emotions? Yeah, they could, I suppose, maybe add to a momentum that is already in motion. Uh, I think that emotions are have a stronger force, and that's why so much work tends to be done or emphasized to do work on one's ability to think rationally around emotions, right? So I
Yeah.
generally think that, yeah, I
Yeah, I'm not. This is good because I don't hold you. Whatever you say today, you could change tomorrow, but that's good. Yeah, yeah, just sussing these out is how you feel, your intuition, your guess is all good. So, Gabriel, fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I.
uh I don't know what I think. I mean, until I research something, until
Oh,
I investigate it a little bit.
that's good. I like that. Can humans think without language?
Um, like yes, I think so.
Yeah.
They could think in colors, you know. I think we do that all the time too. I think that we emphasize the use of language, but I think we think in random images, and then we use language to define or say what it was, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Chomsky says a language is not just words, it's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do
Mhm.
you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
When language breaks down, I grunt, I moan, I scream, I use obscene hand gestures, I I I bark.
Good. Good lineup, dude. You're a wordsmith. Your observations, I'm glad you're laughing because this is supposed to be fun. So, your observations of humans in general, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
Oh, I think more feeling,
Yeah,
uh, based on, yeah, I think we're more feeling, but we like to some of us like to think we're more thinking, you
yeah,
know? Uh, but then that also varies too, because there are moments maybe you're able to exercise enough, I don't know, energy or force in your thought to direct your emotion. But I think just observing how emotions seem to manifest and play out, both in myself and what I see and, the madness of crowds or whatnot.
yeah. I love Bridget Bardot says, "When I make love, I don't think." I like good luck. How
Right.
can you turn your brain off from thinking? You
Mhm.
can't, we invented these two words, but thinking and feeling are so intertwined, you can't really separate them. But we think we can because we invented words. So
Right.
these are,
100%.
yeah, these are two questions from Alan Turing, 1950s. Is thinking a function of the soul?
Yeah, that's a because the word soul itself is it's so hard to, I mean, we can't really objectively define what a soul is, right? But I'll throw one back at you. W.B. Yeats said, I might misquote him here, but man cannot speak of the truth, only embody it, right? So, as they used to say, some people have soul and you could see it, right? But is it a soul in the religious sense? I think there's so many interesting definitions of soul, right? And is thinking an epiphenomenon of that? Um, yeah,
What's that
sure,
word
why
mean?
not?
Well, what's that word mean? The
Epiphenomenon.
yeah, what's that word mean?
It's it's the output of so Marx speaks about how our thought is consciousness is an epiphenomenon of our gray matter, of our brain, right? So um he being a materialist, right? And those that believe that everything springs from consciousness, Marx believes that consciousness springs from material, our gray
Gray, oh,
matter,
of gray matter. Yeah.
you know
Good.
so
Yeah.
as
You go ahead.
yeah. No, no, that's
You
a great
taught me a lot.
question, man. It's a great,
No, you taught me a lot. It's Turing's question, but you taught me a lot, especially the Yeats quote leads perfectly. But let's do the other Turing question first. Can machines think?
um, sure. I think they can think a type of way. Um, I think we're learning and we're about to learn, well, just what type of way that is that they can think in. Because it's so easy to, I mean, what is thinking still, right?
Yeah.
How much of a role does intuition play in our thoughts?
Yeah.
So, but as far as like adding 2 + 2, yeah, and they could think better than they will think better than most humans when it comes to solving, certain math problems, I think. But will they be able to reproduce Van Gogh's Starry Night? I
Yeah.
think that's what a lot of people fear. But at this moment, the jury is still out for me.
Yeah, I like the 2 + 2 line because Frank Zappa has a song where he goes 1 + 1 = 11, 2 + 2 = 22.
Nice.
Now
Yes.
that is sort of true. If you put a 2 and a 2, that's 22. But math doesn't maybe want you to say that 2 + 2 equals. For us to ask you about the word truth, which you brought up with that Yeats quote. Thank you for teaching me that too. I need that quote. Buñuel said, I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it.
Mm,
Most people love that. They go, that's great. And then
right.
one guy finally challenged that and he goes, that's bullshit. Because if I'm going to seek something, it's because I want to find it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the cliche goes, the journey's more important than the destination. Why do we have to seek or name a destination if the journey's more important?
That's a good question. You have to set goals in life, You can't just wander aimlessly, just throw a dart at a map and just go there. There's something to having the idea of the light at the end of the tunnel, maybe, the idea of getting to the place. I think that plays a part in whatever the hero or heroine's journey is for us.
Yeah.
But that's just one approach. I mean, the path could be no path.
Yeah.
I'm just speaking, speculations and random guesses here. So,
Dude, you got it down. That's what I want because the flaneurs in the 20s in Paris basically did that. They just said, let's just sit here in the coffee gallery and do nothing and wander aimlessly psychogeography. And then they changed the world. So
mm,
it was great that you get this big picture comprehensivist. So, do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
good question. Um, Well, yeah, again, everything is, I see things in this kind of multi-ordinal sort of way, I suppose, right? So there are things that are more short-term sort of happiness and then more long-term happiness, that those actions will bring meaning to one's life. I think that if you take yourself on that journey, or that, well, just for instance, I wrote a book. This book took a long time to write, and it took a lot of sacrifice in order to get the book done. Uh, there were a lot of moments where I was not physically happy, backaches, neck pains, et cetera, from sitting at a desk for days on end, right? but I'm happy now that it's done. I'm happy that I could share it with the world,
Yeah.
so I do like that notion of, yeah, I think searching for meaning is a huge part of people's lives. Yeah,
Yeah.
for me
Well
too.
put. Well put, Gabriel. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create consciousness? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more detecting it or more creating it?
That's a very good question. Um, detect it, or what'd you say? You said creating it, right?
Create. Yeah.
Maybe it's a co-creation,
Yeah.
right? Uh, that everything perhaps in nature has its own frequency of a consciousness, and this bandwidth that we're able to lock in with and tune into, perhaps. But as far as how we consider consciousness generally, I mean, it comes down to that, what, Marx versus Berkeley, right?
Yeah.
Marx being the materialist, as I said, consciousness is only an epiphenomenon of matter, right? Um, and then, or George Berkeley's, idealism, which everything is consciousness, including matter, right? And we all exist in God's dream. But it's for me, what do I think right now? I think it's a little bit of both. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's a little bit of both.
What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Man, I think usually speed of light, but some people can think pretty fast.
There's a poet, Audre Lorde, said, you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Yvonne Rainer said, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
So you can't destroy the master's house using the master's tools, but you
That's
can if you expose the tools.
well, that's two people saying intro lines to my question.
Hmm.
That this is a good thing because just because I say a cute quote before the question doesn't mean you have to apply the quote to the question.
Mm, mm,
And just because I say new tool, it doesn't have to be a new tool per se. It could be a tool. It's
right.
really, Gabriel, you putting the essence of the question into the context you want.
Okay.
So you can put it into the context of those quotes, or you don't have to.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, like the idea of utilizing something that belonged to some force or group or whatever that's trying to mess up your life, right? Flipping it on them, shall we say? Flipping the script, um, and utilizing, say, words to gain freedom. Um, I think that, yeah, I mean, say, just take literacy for instance. I think that it has been used to help liberate people from oppressive regimes that came before them, like the practice of pamphleting that rose about in the 1700s. I think played a huge part in both the American and French revolutions, that you know all this language, condensed information, was communicated to people when those pamphlets were posted on wooden doors, and so I think that, yeah, the master's tools can be used against to destroy the master's house, if you will. you know um as far as
That's
new tools, what's that?
Well, no, that was good, but go ahead. You can apply the word new because I love pamphlets, man. That what you basically said with the tool was words and pamphlets, man. That's what I'm all about that. I've handed out flyers for my whole 40, 50 years. And I
Nice.
used to hand
Respect.
out a flyer on the Venice Boardwalk and I would give it to someone and I say, whatever you do, don't read it. And,
Okay.
and they would look at me funny, it's reverse psychology.
Mm.
And one person said, you got anything I could read? Which they flipped it on back onto me. So
There you
I
go.
love I loved your word flipping.
Uh-huh.
Oh, what new toy do you suggest?
3D printers.
Oh, that
Yeah.
is great. You're a smart man. I'm learning a lot. I appreciate this. What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Oh man, a lot of stuff. What's the recent worries? Dude, I don't know. Just having enough money to survive.
Money to survive is very practical, sir.
Right.
McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, so we might be able to learn to cope with what we don't like about the inventions. So, everybody's freaking on Chat GP or whatever, or they're freaking on 3D printers. So I asked you the question, Gabriel, that McLuhan probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
That's a great question, Jerry. Thank you
Thank
for asking that. Yeah. Um, I think that it's to follow a McLuhan line. I think that it's all too traumatic to, as what was it? Allen Ginsberg said it, and then, or was it Burroughs that said it? But yeah, Ginsberg said it, and then Burroughs used it for his book Naked Lunch. You know, like about looking at the naked lunch at the end of your fork. You
Yeah,
know, to realize that you're eating a cheeseburger, but you were once eating this cow that's kept in prison in Coalinga, you know, and but you still have to eat, if you're not a vegetarian, you still eat this cheeseburger.
yeah,
I think that humans are really good at deluding ourselves, or not wanting to see at times just how gruesome things, the horror of the situation, as Gurdjieff called it. And so there's something to the new technology as well that is, I think that it's a lot to always stay current, especially nowadays, of looking at what the newest reflection of humanity might be. So like McLuhan said, we're always viewing things through the rear view. We're looking at, our present is actually what just happened, 20, 30 years ago. We're
yeah,
only able to digest this now. I wonder if this function could be sped up. I think that there are poets and writers and artists who have been able to do that in their own lives. Like you said, they deal with now, whereas most people are dealing with 30 years ago. I think that
yeah.
Robert Tom Wilson was one of those people, and like I'm going to side with McLuhan. I think that people, yes, I agree, and they tend not to look at the situation right now because it's life itself is, trauma is a strong word, but it's a lot of energy, and
Yeah.
we're constantly constricting our awareness in order to just survive. You can't, it's like the old Monty Python skit where all the philosophers were playing soccer or football on the pitch, so you have Plato and Socrates, and they're missing the soccer ball, because they're thinking such lofty thoughts.
That's good.
You have to be able to do both. There's a time and place to play soccer, and then, the
Yeah.
time and place to think far out thoughts.
Extremely enlightening. Thank you. It really evoked Wyndham Lewis said, artists live in the present and write a detailed history of the future.
Ooh,
That is that's one of my
love it.
most, and it's like people hear that and it's like, what? But Ram Dass, be here now. Like, why do we have to save or archive anything when we're just supposed to live right now? Just that's big enough. Just live right now for the moment. So,
Mhm.
but rear view mirrorism isn't always bad. Yeah, like we want to look in the past a little, see what happened. We
Mhm.
think we do, but really doesn't matter. But I'm curious, do artists have moral obligation?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. Um, I think that well, it depends whose morals, right? And who's defining the moral.
Yeah.
But there are some things that personally I don't think. think's pretty evil. So like some artist, you know, if you're some gruesome serial killer and you're also an artist, I think you're more gruesome serial killer than an artist, you know. But if you send the ticker a little closer into stuff, I mean, yeah, I think that's something to say. Picasso, you know, he was a jerk and a misogynist. It's real difficult to balance, you know, what I like how Colin Wilson breaks it down, which is, you know, because that Wilson looked at both the highest of the highs for human achievement and basically criminals. And, you know, like what he said is you know, basically for artists, we think we tend to think of them in their best light of the lives that they lived, and criminals, we look at them in their worst light in the lives that they lived. Yet there are some prisoners and horrible convicts and criminals who are also great writers, you know. So where does that lie? I don't know, man. I mean, if you see something happening in front of you, by all means do something about it. It doesn't matter who it is. You know, if you saw Charles Bukowski raping some woman, not saying that he ever did, you know, but so I would knock him out, right? But
Yeah.
do you know, if you
Yeah.
yeah, that's
That's
all.
no, that's a lot. There's a lot there because it's the dilemma of separating the art from the artist.
And I want
You
to
know.
take back, you know, I shouldn't have said dude's name like that because
No,
I
but
don't want to even put
it's
that
all
in the
right.
air, you know.
No, it's totally understandable. It's like after Bill Cosby court case became huge, I dumpster dove Bill Cosby books, mint. And it's
Yeah.
like they just were like, I got to get these out of my house. But I grew up and laughed hard at some of his skits on vinyl records. So how do I reconcile that? How do I process that? You know, and the guy got fired 2 weeks ago for showing Birth of a Nation in his film class.
Mm.
That's film history, but they said, nope, you can't show that anymore. So to me, that's a tough one. You know, yeah. Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
I think right now, old ideas, man.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the old ideas I've been seeing the last few years come back into prominence have really got me questioning just how much thought human beings use.
Yeah.
You know,
Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
yes. Yep.
What is it? Or can you describe it briefly?
Yeah, and I snuck out of my crib at night when my cousins were babysitting, and I crawled, you know, down the crib, and then I went downstairs, and there was a, you know, our foyer, you know, entranceway. There was a basement that we had an opening, so you could see the basement when you walk inside. But there was like the little radiator on the ground, about like 8 inches high, and I was peeking up from there to watch the TV to see what, you know, TV shows all the adults watched, you know, and so they caught me, but I got to watch the TV. You know,
Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
it's a blessing. Yeah.
Tell me someone, please, briefly, within your immediate family who had an impact on you, and then sort of like a role model, and then outside your immediate family.
Um, I don't know. I mean, well, I guess in some ways, you know, my dad was a role model.
What did you mainly get from your dad?
Uh, the love of words and speaking extemporaneously. My dad was a bar owner and also like an activist. So he, you know, he liked to speak, and he, in some ways, he was like the first MC I ever saw, because we had a small bar, but he had set up a microphone system in this bar, and he had a ticker tape, and he'd just put the people's names in from the people in the bar, and he'd make an announcement about them while they're sitting drinking or whatever, and he'd roll over with the microphone and just start talking to them. And this was a bar that was, you know, it couldn't fit more than 75 people, and there was absolutely no reason for why he needed to be doing any of this other than he enjoyed it and people laughed, and so
You mean wait a minute? You mean he interviewed them?
he could have been. I mean, it was more just jokes. He was just, it was a bar, so it was more jokes. It was more. He actually, he did stand up. I saw him do stand up one time, comedy stand up,
Yeah.
uh,
So
and
is
that
he
was that
Irish?
was great.
Is he
Irish.
Irish? Yeah.
Sorry, is he
Is
Irish?
he Irish?
Yes, yes. Both my parents from Ireland.
Born in America or Ireland?
Both born in Ireland.
Wow, he was doing Finneganese, man.
Oh, he
So
definitely was.
so outside your immediate family, someone who had an impact on you.
Yeah, yeah. Friends, some friends here and there over the years. Friend of mine named Ken Woods. Um, just someone that he passed away a few years ago, a bunch of years ago now. But sometimes all you need is just someone on the other end of the line, just
Yeah.
able to hear what you're going through. And they don't need to tell you the drama of their lives at that moment in time, just a friend that is there to listen,
Yeah.
and I'm super grateful to have known Ken. Yeah.
That's good. Good. Just being a support system. So were you raised Roman Catholic?
I was, yes. And to quote Carlin, I was Catholic until I reached the age of reason.
Do you pray?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. I pray usually in moments of great danger.
If God exists, what do you want God to say to you after you die?
Oh, shit. uh, Hey, man, we've been watching you. You put on a great show.
That's good. Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
Oh, man. Well, it's interesting question, but by the time it gets to the person doing the evil, at that moment it doesn't matter to me. I'm responding to that. And if that individual is doing something that I deem evil, I will either take action or get out of there.
Yeah. I was wondering how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And few thinkers, Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. The basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, Gabriel, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
I think that's true in some sense. Say if you're at like a function or something and you see them across the way, you should ignore them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But overall, how would you advise someone to deal with an enemy?
Well, I like Robert Anton Wilson's approach. He made like a magical ritual out of it, which was take a picture of this person who is, seeking to psychically bully you in some way or what you deem as an enemy, and put that picture in the center of a circle, and you and a few other, cohorts do a laughing meditation. So just look at the picture and just laugh at this picture and this person and all that bad energy for about 20 minutes, for as long as you can. Just laugh at them. And through that, you kind of cleanse yourself of the whatever energies around, this strange, because like Watts said, your enemy is also a reflection of you. I believe that to a degree. There's some sort of pull, and you have to cut that tie of whatever it is that keeps you encountering your enemy, if you will, or someone you deem an enemy. But so that's one approach. Another approach is to just, hold on to it, stuff it down real low, and, think about all types of revenge that you can have on this person or individuals. And just, I find success is the best revenge,
Yeah.
just just know that we live in this world of people running into each other, and it's going to create enemies perhaps. And you got to keep it moving.
Like that a lot. Success is the best revenge. Nassim Taleb said, games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we know who is a hero and who is not. So the basic question is, does punishment work? Someone said villains don't think they are bad. They want control. Heroes want freedom. And Gregory Bateson said, if you catch a criminal, and do they think they did something morally or socially wrong, or do they go, wow, I just didn't have my criminal skills up to snuff that day, I got caught? So does punishment work?
Oof. Okay, you got all the good questions today, Jerry.
Thanks.
Does punishment work? Again, I think it depends what type of punishment.
Yeah.
Right. Because the prison system that we have today is just indicative of a broken justice system, where it's been said for fucking hundreds of years now, like criminals get sent to jail and they learn how to become better criminals.
Yeah.
Right. It's like criminal school.
Yeah.
But some people are able to utilize the time to, gain deeper insights into their lives and the crimes they committed against humanity, but so many of these things really depend upon the individual involved in the situation, and where they're at, and then time. Because that one criminal could have said at one moment, yeah, I messed up. I should have done that crime better and not feel much remorse. But later on, maybe with years in prison, they come around to that remorseful acknowledgement that they committed a sin truly against their fellow human being by murdering someone in cold blood, But at the same time, we have a whole war industry or war habit that human beings have had for time immemorial, that once someone kills someone in a battle of war, they're viewed as a hero and not a villain. But what's the difference? It's still the same gun. It's still the same bullet that's killing another human being. I mean, Harry Truman, I believe it was Truman who did it. He dropped 2 bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, killing 200,000 people approximately in Japan, and at the end of World War II. I mean, that's a sort of mega death. He killed so many innocent people through the dropping of that bomb. So I think all these multidimensional, aspects I try to apply when thinking about these important and large topics,
Yeah. Really well put. James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin. He basically checked out. He said, this is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree? Years later, Faulkner said, sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the notion of the rear view mirror aspect of humanity, that there's this aspect to us that life is so large, in the moment we only get one perspective at a time, so the ability to look at things through a slightly different perspective, I think that's maybe a sign of human evolution, perhaps, that we can see the world through others' eyes, and if we can increase that, without judgment, perhaps maybe we evolve,
It's great. Gabriel, just briefly tell me your path. Like, did you go to college to be a writer? What was the tipping point for you to say, I want to pursue writing? And, you could talk about writing hip hop lyrics and being an actor, but let's start off with writing. What was that like? you grew up, you said like 16, you started to pursue books. Where are you going? Like, what are you doing to say, I want to do this?
Series of bad decisions. I don't know. I read those books at, um, I started, I guess I got into the Beats, then Herman Hesse and Timothy Leary. And there seemed to be something there that, something about going out and experiencing the world and then writing about it, um, just was just appealing to me. Um, and so that was around 16. I had no immediate role models really in my life that was doing any of that stuff. Um, so it was just this vague sort of abstract idea, this vague direction of where I think I wanted to go in my life. And I remember I was going to an all boys Catholic school, of which I eventually got kicked out of. Talking to my guidance counselor and telling them, he was like, well, "What do you do? What do you want to do with your life? What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, I think I like writing, And at that time, I didn't share any of my writing with anyone really. And he just kind of looked at me and he's like, "What do you mean writing? You should do something for the newspaper then." And I knew then it was I think writing is a reflection of gaining more self autonomy of self, and your own personal perspective, developing that in the world, in yourself, and that's what I was seeking, basically your own quest to find yourself, and writing became a major tool for that, for me to do that, you know. So I think things kind of moved organically though, although I used to say like, yeah, I'm going to be a writer. um, it took a long time to get to publishing my first book though. And I didn't go to college for it. No, I went to school for, I was studying social science. Um, but I just read a lot, more
What
than I did before.
that was good summary. What kicked you over to doing hip hop lyrics and acting? Were there tipping points there for those two pursuits?
So hip hop was very organic that I got into it. So I, grew up just outside of New York City. And so, hip hop was huge. So that was just going out, being involved in a social scene. It eventually just stayed at hip hop. Like that was like a lot of the events I went to were stuff like that. So seeing people MC, and so it being kind of its own little scene. Um, it was a youth scene, and just the desire to do what they were doing, and to think that, oh yeah, maybe I could string some words together and kick a fresh rhyme right here and make people throw their hands up and have fun and keep the party going. So it's very organic like that. It was a super creative sort of scene, and scenes that I had the pleasure of being involved in. It was a lot of people who were producing their own stuff, and that was a major part of it. To be an MC was a big deal for me, and then the it was kind of like an oral tradition of people telling you stories about other MCs, and how do you perform, how do you even rock the stage correctly. You have to stand out in the front of the stage. Don't hang out in the middle of the stage. Like these little things, you have to engage the crowd. Learning all these things organically through talking to people and then observing and stuff like that. It was just kind of part of my path, and I did that for a number of years. And it was during that time though that I was already writing articles and stuff like that for various websites. And I saw them as sort of extensions of each other. I think a lot of hip hop artists, they're going to be looked at years from now, and there's going to be huge textbooks of these lyrics, um, like in college classes, I think. Um, but yeah, and then so everything is just very organic, really. And then
But what before we leave hip hop, tell me two or three hip hop lyricists that made an impact on you. Just their names. Anybody stand out, or albums?
so many, so many, so many. This guy, Black Thought from the
Okay.
Roots, so great. Rakim, So
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Being a white boy in the scene, an Irish kid, I thought Everlast, was
Yeah.
great. This guy Aesop Rock, he was actually born in the town that I grew up in. I think
Yeah.
he's great. I think he's great.
No,
I'm
that's
a
good.
Yeah.
That's a good amount.
Yeah.
Now, how about acting? You growing up watching movies and then you go, I can do that? Where was the kick over to pursue acting?
That's interesting. Yeah. So really, as a kid, uh, I didn't have, didn't go to any theater or anything like that. I just watched a whole lot of TV. But one show, uh, acting always fascinated me, but that show Inside the Actor Studio. Do you
Oh,
remember that
wow.
show?
Of
Uh,
course.
and so, something about, the way James Lipton spoke to these amazing actors about their training and about kind of like what it takes for a person to develop a craft to act. Like, I didn't know it at the time, but I was extremely fascinated with the idea of the craft of acting. And most actors, when they're interviewed on TV, they don't talk about, the scene study classes that they go to in order to develop specific skills in order to, use your body as an instrument to act. So yeah, it was from watching great movies, you know, uh,
Yeah.
but I never thought that I would do that, like acting or anything like that, because I didn't know there was none of that. I grew up, my parents were bar owners, you know what I mean? Like, uh, working class. I didn't, I saw like, I've maybe seen less than a handful of plays, um, besides scene study. That's the only place to really, I could dig into plays that just wasn't in the house like that, but
Yeah.
there were movies. And so, yeah, Martin Scorsese movies, Robert De Niro, Al
Yeah.
Pacino, Tom Hardy is a great actor. Like anyone that, like, it's this notion, I think, like in terms of energy, like if there's an energy that's there, whether
Yeah.
it's music or writing or something that's there, then it appeals to me and I get inspired by it. And then I want to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, no, that's the Irish tradition is that energy was in a bar. That's what James Joyce's dad did. He ran, but you have a bar and you have the energy as you drink beer and tell stories and sing songs, you know. So
Yes.
you had the perfect setup. But did your parents want you to carry the bar tradition on, or they supported you go off and do your thing?
Maybe the latter. Yeah.
They did. Well, that's
Yeah.
good. You got good parents. So a screenwriting teacher told me great film or great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker.
Mhm.
What role does intention play in your creative process? Like when you're writing fiction or you're writing hip hop lyrics?
Big part. Yeah, huge part. Thus far. Um, I'm not able to produce something without an intention behind it. Uh, I just, yeah, like I need that to feed me to physically get through the process of creating a finished, polished sort of product, because like editing is not a lot of fun. It is in some way, but generally it's not the part you think about in the whole writing of a book process. And producing endless drafts and then reading over the same sentence over and over again, um, that's psychically draining, like, but you have to have that dedication to craftsmanship, and
Where'd you get that dedicated to craftsmanship? From the way your parents raised you or on your own?
well, maybe on my own, but I believe too that we carry traits from our family lines, that maybe from our grandparents or great grandparents, that we have never even met, and we don't even know much about them, but we have resonances. So I think a certain dedication might exist within my family line. Maybe my grandpa had it or something,
Yeah.
but with this, yeah, it's just a certain fanatical obsession with getting something right, you know. And but in order to be that way, I think I personally need an intention and deep meaning. I need meaning in my work.
And Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your reader when you're writing something?
Well, yeah, that's a very good question too. A little bit. Yeah. Well, so yeah, I mean, I can equate this to emceeing, right? So I like all types of emceeing. Some are very abstract words and phrases and images you're creating, but it doesn't get the audience right away. There's certain words and ways to MC that you get the crowd participation. And I think it's a little bit of both. I
Yeah.
think some of the most effective writing is good popular writing.
Gabriel McClune said everything we invent extends some humanness or human sensorium. Knife and fork extend their teeth. Shutter in a camera might be an extension of our eyelid. Even non-tangible religion or philosophy could extend the extension of consciousness. What does the writing utensil extend for you? What humanness, whether it's keyboard or a pencil or a pen?
What does it extend for me? What humanness does it extend for me? I think this sort of need to tell a story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Hollis Frampton's experimental filmmaker, he said, narrative is born among the animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die. Can you forget to die?
I don't think so. I think it's always there. The day is coming. You just try not to think about it much.
Well, you got a book coming out on Robert Anton Wilson. I'm wondering if you could briefly discuss how you got into that and your what do you get out of studying Robert Anton Wilson? It's funny. Did you know this? The day the movie 23 came out, that's Robert Anton Wilson's main number, right?
Yes.
The day the movie came out, he died.
Oh, it came out in 2007.
Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Jim Carrey's film
Mm,
23
mm.
came out and it killed. No, but it didn't kill him, but that's called conceptual continuity in Zappa's terms, or
Oof.
McLuhan called it complex clairvoyance.
Oh man. Well, it may not have killed Bob, but it certainly killed his message a little bit.
So now, what age do you get into Bob? Let's call him Bob. That's the best way. What age did you get into Bob? Did you meet him? And then how did you come about writing this book? Is there many biographies on him? Is there any?
No, this is the first biography.
And it's on a major press like MIT?
On a major press at MIT. It's
Dude, how'd you get that gig? That's a pretty good gig. Is it a big, thick hardcover with pictures and everything?
there should be pictures. It's gonna be paperback.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Tell us the evolution of your interest in him and getting the book. Yeah.
Sure, of course, yeah. So I first discovered Bob. I was my senior year of high school, in the back of math class. A friend of mine who would come into class with these huge books all the time, from Faulkner, James Joyce. One time he brought in Finnegan's Wake and a hard-covered Oxford English dictionary, in the back of public school math class. And I got a kick out of this guy. I'd never really seen that before. Like, I have my own dictionary, but this guy had like the giant Oxford English dictionary just for this book. And then one day he brought in Illuminatus trilogy, and I really thought the cover was cool. And then I read the back cover, and it was about this secret organization that runs the world behind the scenes. And I never considered that before. 17, I thought, how can that even be possible? And the story got me. I quickly learned after that it was a book not about one secret organization that runs the world, but about many secret organizations that are battling each other in order to either run the world or liberate the world. And just this emphasis on, you know, what Peter Dale Scott has called parapolitics, you know, the stuff that's going on, or as Carl Oglesby said, you know, conspiracies contend in the night. Being Irish, I suppose.
Slow down there for a second.
Yeah, right.
Peter Dale Scott's was what?
Oh,
What he call it?
He calls it parapolitics, P-A-R-A.
Yeah, parapolitics.
Politics.
And then my wife hung out with Carl Oglesby, so that's perfect.
Oh, wow.
What did he call it?
Well, he says that, you know, a multitude of conspiracies contend in the night.
Contend in the night. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, it's all good. You know, like to me, reading this, you know, Wilson kind of expressing these things, the way that he expressed these things, it rang true. When I was a kid, I used to watch every year, you know, George Carlin comedy specials. And, you know, there was just something about the way George Carlin expressed reality that, like, you know, resonated with me and so many people. He was able to express these things that I thought, but didn't fully formalize with words. So I just laughed my ass off, you know, and lo and behold, George Carlin was a huge fan of Robert Anton Wilson. You know, Carlin read Wilson since Wilson's first article at The Realist in 1959. You know, Carlin was like probably one of the longest term Robert Anton Wilson fans there's ever been. You know, Carlin said he's learned more from Robert Anton Wilson than any single source ever.
Wait, I've got to interrupt. I worked for Carlin for a half a year.
Oh,
and
shit.
At one point he said to me, I'm going to learn a lot from you. And I said to him, can I put that on my gravestone?
Nice.
And what's funny is now you're teaching me a lot. I'm learning a lot from you. Carlin said he was going to learn a lot from me. And, you know, it all goes back to the head sub genius, Robert Anton Wilson, who got it all from James Joyce and Finnegan's Wake.
Yes.
It's it's pretty much what's called a mosaic. A Mobius strip. It's a Mobius strip kind of thing. But this is amazing. You're dropping names like are blowing me out. They're blowing my mind. Peter Dale Scott is one of the heavies of all time.
Yes.
And he lived across the street from my wife's mother. And I wanted to go up to the door and say, dude, can I interview? I actually want to interview him because he's still living.
Yeah, he is.
He's around. Big. But now to carry on. So then you're reading, Bob, after Illuminati's trilogy, then what's your path from there? Did you ever meet him or what happened from there?
I met Bob 3 times. I met him briefly at this thing called the disinfo.com conference in 2000. That was a really monumental event. So many of my favorite writers, living writers, I met there, you know, for the first time, you know, so I went there. I met Grant Morrison. I met Douglas Rushkoff. I saw both of them speak. I thought they were brilliant. And I went to the disinfo.com conference in 2000 because Robert Anton Wilson was speaking, and I, you know, thought it would be great to meet him. And so I got to meet him. I was hanging out, you know, backstage in the green room, and my mission was to have Bob sign Illuminati's trilogy, my copy of Illuminati's trilogy. And so there he was on the couch smoking a cigarette and, you know, confessing to me that he has bad stage fright. And I was shocked. I was like, how can this guy have stage fright? Because he was going to go on soon. And then there was like this cool, hip, you know, older New York photographer guy just there watching everyone smoking cigarettes. And I pulled out the Illuminati trilogy, and I was about to hand it to Bob for him to sign it. And then just as it was, you know, moving through space, this other guy's hand grabbed the book and he took it. And he was like, Illuminati, what's this about? You know? And I was like, it's about 800 pages. And I grabbed it back and I gave it to Bob. And, you know, he laughed at that. And I liked that, you know, because Bob was from Brooklyn, you know, and he didn't take no mess, you know. and so you know, he got a good kick out of that. Because how could you be sitting next to the guy who is the main speaker of the event and act like
Not
you don't
yeah.
even know the guy?
Yeah,
Get out of here. Get out of here. You know? So
it wasn't Bob Dobbs. Did you meet Bob Dobbs at that conference?
I did meet this guy going
You
around
did?
saying he was Bob Dobbs. He had
And
the
did
curly
you
hair.
talk to him a little?
Oh yeah, he was brilliant. He was like, I was like, maybe this really
Whoa,
is Bob Dobbs.
that's pretty good.
He
You're in
was a
trouble
trip.
now calling him brilliant. Okay, so then you met Bob, Robert Anton Wilson 2 other times. So they were deeper or just short encounters?
This other time was pretty short. It was to see him speak in San Francisco in 2001. It was December 4th, 2001. Me and a buddy of mine went there, and somehow we got weed cookies, and I ate them before the talk, and that was great, but I could barely say anything, you know.
Right.
And then in 2003, I actually went to Santa Cruz July 23rd, 2003, to the premiere of the documentary that was made about
Yeah,
him called
that's a
Maybe
good
Logic.
doc. Yeah,
And so
that's a good doc. Yeah.
I made
Krasner
it.
actually gave me his DVD of that. What a gift.
Yes,
That's
indeed.
cool doc.
Nice, man. Yeah, so I got to go to that. I went to that. I went to the premiere. It was in Santa
Yeah.
Cruz. And when I was there afterwards, I met David J. Brown, the writer David J. Brown.
I know David. Yep.
Yeah, he's a great writer. He writes about such awesome things. And he and Bob were good friends. So I just asked him, I was like, I saw Bob was really busy, but I was like, hey man, I made up some fake magazine that I was writing for. I
Yeah.
just wanted to hang out with my favorite writer. And
Right.
so I was like, hey, can you introduce me to Bob? And I'd like to set up an interview with him. And he did just that. And the next day I received an email when I was at some internet cafe in Santa Cruz from this guy, Mark at Cruzio.com. And I was like, who is this? Who's Mark? And when I opened it, it was from Robert Anton Wilson. That was his kind of alias, online alias. And he gave me directions to his condo. Where exactly was it now? Well, in Santa Cruz. And I went out and I went to Radio Shack and I bought one of those old school tape recorder microphones. And I caught a bus and I made it to his apartment, and had no interview questions lined up, but I just basically asked him everything questions that I had for this guy. And he was very giving with his time. We spoke for like 2 hours. And at this time he had post polio pretty bad. So he was mostly confined to a wheelchair. And, I know it was very difficult for him to walk around. He told me during the interview about how at times, when he gets up from his wheelchair, because he practiced still walking so his body wouldn't forget, but he would fall. He'd be like, yeah, sometimes I get up to go to the bathroom. I just fall right on the floor. And I cringed a little bit. I was like, oh my God, don't tell me that. You're Robert Anton Wilson, but this guy, he walked to his front door to greet me, and then he walked back to the chair. And that's an image I always carry with me. It's like, one, that he took the time to meet with this unknown kid who was making up some magazine just to hang out with this guy for a couple hours and talk to him while he was sick, and that he just used his mind. I think Robert Anton Wilson is a great example of someone who could use his thought to override like physical pain and emotions, to greet me at the door. And then he went back to his wheelchair and we sat and hung out. Actually, he sat on his couch, but we just chatted for 2 hours. And that was the most, I met my hero then. I met my literary hero.
That is amazing story. So then from 2000, that was 2003.
That was July 24th, 2003.
So 2003 to now, that's 20 years ago. When did you decide to write the bio? How many years?
Well,
did you publish the 2-hour interview?
I did. Yes, I did.
In what? online or?
Yeah, it's online. Yeah,
Okay.
it's unavailable it's available on a few outlets. I think it's on my Medium
Okay,
right
well,
now.
we can find it, but then 10 years later, you say, I'm going to write the book. I mean, why isn't all these people stand in line to write the bio and all of a sudden it's finally coming out? It's like pretty cool. You got it. Because
Yeah,
all these
as
people, there's so many hardcore Bob fans. Like you got it. Was it 10 years ago or 5 years ago? Well, how many years did you spend writing it?
well as Bob liked to quote Charles Fort, who said, "It's steam engines when it's steam engine time." Right, and
That's good.
I, Orson Welles once spoke of his friend Ernest Hemingway about the significance that Hemingway had on American literature, and Welles said that for about 10 or 15 years after Hemingway bit the bullet, uh, he he wasn't that popular. His name, cachet
Yeah.
dwindled and decreased. And this is Wells's observation, but he said he noticed that somewhat with like writers, um, that there'd be a number of years when things are just quiet after they die. And I think that it just took this amount of time for for me to produce this book. But also, I mean, um, it's coming out in 2023. The name of the book is Chapel Perilous: The Lives and Thought Crimes of Robert Anton Wilson. But Chapel Perilous, that state of great uncertainty, danger, and unknowing, where one can either become more paranoid or more agnostic when they successfully move through it, right?
Yeah.
The world entered has entered extreme states of Chapel Perilous, as we do this interview. In the last 7 years, uh, old ideas, old horrible racist fascist ideas have
Yeah.
arisen, and all the cowboys who call themselves leaders of nations are acting like cowboys,
Yeah.
endangering and murdering like fucking so many people right now. We live in a very dangerous time,
Yeah.
and I think it's the perfect moment for a book like Chapel Perilous to come out,
Yeah.
because Robert Anton Wilson truly was an antenna of
Yeah.
culture, right? he
Totally.
he he presaged this. He saw this chaos that was coming, because people are losing their minds with different types of ideas. They're like mind parasites,
Yeah.
and it's being transmitted through the internet, which I don't think Wilson totally saw how crooked it could get. But
Yeah.
the internet itself can be the tool that helps us further evolve past this current
Oh, yeah.
state of crisis that we did to ourselves.
Beautiful.
Humans did this to ourselves.
So beautifully put, Gabriel, because McLuhan said, and it's interesting that people who are Joyceans don't usually tap into McLuhan, and McLuhanites don't tap into Joyce. But Robert Anton Wilson was one of those guys that
Big
did
time.
both. And
Mhm.
that's a remarkable thing. But what you said is there is a Martha Graham quote that says, great artists aren't ahead of their times, they are their times. And that's what Robert Anton Wilson was, his times. In the
Yes.
fact that you took whatever. So, I mean, basically you're saying you worked on it for the last 10 years or 5 years.
Well, the biography itself was born in 2015. Yeah.
Right. You
So I started
started
working on
working
that.
into, so that's pretty good. And you had to turn it in. So you worked on it for 5-6 years.
Yeah, 8 years,
8
7 or 8.
years.
Yeah.
8 years. Yeah. Amazing. Well, let's carry on because we should do a whole podcast just on the book. So
That'd be
let's,
great.
yeah. So let you tackled that well. Let's stay focused on who you are and what happened in your life. Michael Apted, filmmaker. I asked him 40 years ago, why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast? Most people don't know rapid montage was invented in 1922 by Abel Gance in France. But Marty Scorsese In 1980, when MTV was breaking, he said, I cut my films faster because of MTV. Michael Apted said, yeah, because we've learned to take in information faster. So I asked this with a bias. Can we literally learn to take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
Yeah, I think we like to think we can. You know, but I like this quote that Bob put out a lot.
Yeah.
From the American anarchist Josiah Warren, that said,
Yeah.
it is dangerous to understand new things too quickly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that's how propaganda works, you know, and I think I love montage. I love it. I love experimenting to see how small you can get the frame and how fast you can flicker the frames. But but to think that I'm receiving all that information, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think we like to think we can, but then you see people repeating the same human tragedies over and over again.
Is it literally possible for humans to multitask?
Yeah, to a degree.
Yeah. What was the motive of the cave artist? Not what Herzog or anthropologists say, your hunch.
Of cave art. It was the first graffiti.
That's right. There's no right or wrong answers to any of these questions, Gabriel, but that one you got right. It is. Do you know this? The New Yorker article Herzog got his film from, they said, you know, cave artists invented 8 new things, and one of them was spray paint. Like they broke up pigment and blew it, and then their hand showed up.
Ooh, yeah.
The life expectancy then was 15. So art was invented by teenage taggers.
Yeah, I love it.
What's more important, conviction or compromise?
Well, being able to compromise while holding on to your core convictions.
Yeah. You accomplished a lot. How do you rate these 3 elements? Luck, skill, and ambition. What contributed the most important second and third?
Well, I think luck we tend not to acknowledge as much, but it's good to acknowledge when you do get lucky. All 3 played a part in this particular book, but ambition, skill, persistence, I would add, to just staying, you know, on track to run that marathon of, you know, achieving a long-term goal. But yeah, you always need a little bit of luck. You definitely always need a little bit of luck.
T.S. Eliot said poetry's outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
Caveman.
2 of my film heroes have the mantra. George Manupelli says, ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas says, there is no self-expression. Cecil Taylor says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. I know it's a stupid question. I know it's both, but just a prompt, what your thoughts are. Is art making more self-expression or more your vehicle for whatever technologies, cultures, and environments are dominant?
I think it's the through the self-expression comes through those means, or it appears through those means, manifests through those new technologies. But I do think that there are like core human elements that we all have that we want to express. And I think it revolves around the notion of, you know, to see and be seen. You know, we individuals, we're on this earth together, you know, and
that's really good. That's the human gaze, you know, studying. Now there's the female gaze, the male gaze, the human gaze. That's to see and be seen. That's heavy, dude. Can art making be egoless?
No. We could try. I don't think so, though.
Is perception reality?
No, definitely not.
Lewis Carroll says, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
Believed in impossible things. Yeah, man, all the time. You
Well,
have
name
to.
one. Name
That
one.
that I could write a book and get it published on MIT Press.
That's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Tell me one major element of your creativeness, writing, hip hop, lyric writing, acting. One major element that stayed the same and one major element that's changed in the years you've been doing it.
A major element that has stayed the same has been this quest to understand better and elucidate, or to speak upon how humans share space on Earth. What is this all about? From historical anthropological
Yeah.
interpretations to the idea of real estate and housing, and
Yeah.
the thought of land, but specifically, as I forget his name right now, but he was a very entertaining. He made a song about it, and it was a guy that said rent is too damn high,
Yeah.
and rent is too damn high, and it's always been too damn high for the last 400 and some odd years. Why is rent too damn high? This is something I think about a lot.
Yeah. It's like, and who gave anyone a right to sell dirt or water? I mean, you can go to the 99 cents, but who said you own that dirt? Like dirt and water should be free. No, a
100%.
lot of things should be free. It's amazing. You also evoked Carl Andre, the sculptor. He said sculpture as place. This thing about sharing space, like that is, the sculpture is the place. It's like, what, I know Robert Anton Wilson. What did Dublin mean to Joyce? What did Dublin mean to Bob? And then could it have been any other place? Does it really matter that it's this place or that place?
Oh, those you raise very good thoughts. You evoke very good thoughts, and many questions. Because, yeah.
Well, Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. Says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength, rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
Oh, wow, that's a great question. A weakness I turned into a strength. Holy moly!
Holy moly, that's a good word, dude.
I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, what's something I viewed as a weakness and then turned it into a strength? Man, I don't know. Well, I mean, just, when you start out, say emceeing or writing or any sort of craft, you're not good at it, right? So you have to keep pursuing, and you turn something that was presently kind of weak into something that's stronger and better. That's the only thing I got for that right there.
That's fine. I went so fast, I didn't let you finish the last question. You told us what was the element that remained same in your creativeness, the quest to understand and elucidate. Great words. What has changed in your creativeness over these years you've been doing it? One major element that's changed.
I think the width, the palette, just my palette of expression has grown. Seeking to communicate words through the medium of hip hop or punk rock or rock or that sort of frequency. It's different for writing and it's different for acting. So just learning how to express myself in these different genres, mediums, forms has changed.
There's a line, Gabriel, that goes, "You create what you resist." Bob Goldthwait, the comedian, morphed it into "You are what you hate." James Joyce said, "It's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve." And Louis Buñuel nailed it. He said, "Thank God I'm an atheist."
Right.
So how do you react to this line? Any thoughts? You create what you resist. I'm not saying you, Gabriel, but one creates what one resists. What's any thoughts on that line?
Yeah, I think that there's some truth in that. Yeah, I mean, we could project. I do take that viewpoint that, we could project aspects of our disowned selves, parts of ourselves that we don't like, and we could project it onto others, individuals or groups. I think there's some truth in that. So that's how I would answer that question.
How do you find peace of mind?
Oh man, a few different ways. Nature, walking in the woods or looking at the ocean brings some peace of mind. Music, whether listening or creating it,
It's good. It's 5 quick Alan Watts questions off the top of your head in just a few words. First one, who started it all?
Oh man, who started it all? We did.
Are we going to make it?
We're already there.
Where do we put it?
In your pocket.
Who's cleaning it up?
You better clean it up.
Fifth one, is it serious?
What was the fifth one?
Is it serious?
Not at all, man.
Right on, dude. If you're walking down the street and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Hang in there.
Yeah. On what occasion do you lie?
To the cops when I'm pulled over.
That is a great answer. Which way should toilet paper come off the roll? Over or under?
Under. Always under.
Why?
I don't know. There's a certain type of the world makes more sense when it's arranged that way.
If a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
Oh shit! Before I turn into gold.
Where'd that line come from?
It's a Leonard Cohen song.
Before I turn into gold?
Yeah, I forget the name of it, but it's the lyrics are like a bunch of lonesome and very quarrelsome heroes were, I think, walking out upon the open road, and some I'd like to tell you my story before I turn into gold.
Have you seen Crock of Gold, the Pogues lead singer doc?
Yeah, it was great.
Sean, what a guy, or no, Shane, what a guy.
Shane,
Okay,
yeah.
the follow-up on that, your autobiography question. They want to scent the glue in the binding of your autobiography. What smell?
Oh shit. Freshly cut grass.
Ooh, I've had that. But the funny thing, if you go first thought, best thought, your first words were, oh shit.
Let's hope not.
Yeah, that's good. Freshly cut grass. I love that answer. Okay.
Maybe shit that smells like freshly cut grass.
If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
Wow. Solid gold. It can only be one place. I want it across the street. Well, let's see. I don't know. It's a great question. Do I want to answer this seriously or ironically? I don't know. I mean, well, I guess maybe there'd be no point, but I would like it in Ireland. Why not?
Yeah. Okay. But I thought when you said across the street from your dad's bar, were you going to say, or where?
I was going to say across the street from the high school that kicked me out.
Oh, from the high school. That's good. Okay. There. See, that's good. Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Like, okay, so those are two things, or the
Yeah,
one
it's
thing I never
good.
had?
It's good. You never had it, but you never want it.
Oh shit!
It's three things.
Let's just stick with the topics and a golden toilet.
Yeah, a golden toilet. It's good. You never had it, and you never want it. Yeah. You know, the answer I get the most are fame, money, and heroin.
Ooh, yeah, I think there's something to the first two, but the third one I might avoid
Yeah.
in
If you
future.
were in a if you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
I'd be like, "Are you Satan? Am I in hell? How did I get here? I don't know."
That's good. You're answering a question with a question, dude. That is what this series is all about. What a way to go out. That's amazing because I always go, that's what Irish people do. When you ask them a question, they answer it with a question.
Right.
You know, that's what McLuhan was all about, is answering questions with invent new questions and new metaphors.
I like that. New bags
That's
of shit.
yeah. If What's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
Um, well, there appears to be this drive and practice of, I guess, more openness and inclusiveness, in humans, culture.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I think that we're like trudging along very clumsily in that,
yeah,
in those attempts. But I like that though. It means that people are not giving up on other people, you
yeah.
know.
No, inclusive is the key word. I love it. I asked this question, can satire be destructive? My friend Write Comedy with Robin Williams said, yeah, that's the job of satire.
All
But
right.
if me or you did a cartoon in a certain country and they killed us, some people think dying is destructive. Jonathan Swift compared satire to a mirror in which you could see every face but your own. Frank Zappa sings the lyric, watch the Nazis run your town. Now go home and check yourself. You think we're singing about somebody else. What's the function of satire?
Okay. Um, well, laughter is a part of it, I
Yeah,
believe. Yeah, well, my thought of it is basically it's the ability to look at, well, humanity and then hopefully oneself and get a good laugh and maybe learn something, because I think you're ultimately laughing at an aspect of idiocy that exists within humans. Um, we like to laugh at our own stupidity, you know.
yeah,
And while it is funny, there's we got a lot of stuff that we need to learn still.
yeah. Yeah, Gurdjieff says laughter is the reconciliation of yes and no.
Mhm.
But McLuhan loved to quote Steve Allen. He said, behind every joke, there's a grievance. Any thought on that? And I don't like, you don't have to address the word every, but behind jokes, there's a grievance. What do you think of that?
I think there's a lot of truth in that. Yeah, I think there's a
Yeah,
lot of truth in that. I think a lot of humor comes from comedians applying what they think is a rational, they're judging something by how stupid people are behaving around it. So they have comedians have a lot of grievances.
well, I know we grew up with Mad Magazine, and now it's satire news, Colbert or whoever. Do you think these satire news shows like Saturday Night Live, do they more activate or more pacify people?
Um, I think it depends which show
Yeah,
and what people, I think that definitely some. I think what Jon Stewart did with the Daily Show,
yeah,
when for years, I think that was very activating.
yeah,
I think it depends on the person who's putting out the message too. Like,
yeah,
you know, it's like you need to have a certain skill set to really perform great satire, because so many things these days are just basically people use that term. It's abused, it's bastardized. There's like, oh, it's just fucking satire, bro. It's like, well, one, you got to be funny first, and two, where are you coming from with it? Because I think a lot of people they misuse that word satire.
Yeah, it goes back to you talking about storytelling. I think Lenny Bruce's one of his biggest influences was Lord Buckley, who turned joke telling into storytelling. And these people don't realize it. They think what Lenny Bruce did was open up the floodgates so he could use 4-letter words. He did a lot more.
Oh yeah.
So we got 2 more and we're out of here. Thank you so much, Gabriel. I really, really learned a lot. I appreciate your time here.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it, Cherry. This is great.
Thornton Wilder said, art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You laid your cards on the table for over 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. Right. What's it really all about for you?
Shoot. Well, to bring it back to something you mentioned earlier, like the notion of meaning. That meaning plays a major part for me. I'm into that. Even exploring how people make meaning. But for me, this idea of, because all life is suffering, but some suffering means more than other suffering. Right.
Yeah.
And I think embracing that fact of reality, it's like, well, what are you going to choose to suffer for? Are you going to join someone else's war so you could die and suffer for someone else's dream and vision? Or are you going to really realize you got this one life here, and you're going to really try to figure out what you want to suffer for? And for me, it's art, it's writing, it's music, it's acting, it's
that's good. Zappa said, I'm a failure, but I'm not a miserable failure.
I like that.
Yeah, because Dylan recently said life is suffering. I'm going, yeah, right. You're a gazillionaire and you're suffering, But then my friend goes, Dylan didn't say that. Buddha said that
right.
Life is suffering. I'm like, what the fuck is this all about? I go back to William Blake. You become what you behold.
I love that.
Yeah. So if you behold joy, happiness, fun, I mean, that's the buzz I always got from Robert Anton Wilson. He was like having fun and playing.
Yes.
He wasn't working,
No, sometimes you got to work at play.
That's true. Very well put, because it's just juggling words, But like T.S. Eliot said, when I talk to you, I got to use words.
Indeed. Yes.
Okay. Last question. What gives you the most optimism?
Oh, most optimism overall. I think that there are still people coming around, being born, with that urge to make things better. To make things better.
Yeah.
Right. And I say that in the sense of, to correct this, to address the question, why is rent so damn high? That people just don't give up on that people agitate for renters' rights and things like that there are still people around with the energy to keep engaging in that, long process for, incremental or revolutionary change.
Yeah, we got to be careful with the great subgenius line, pull the wool over your own eyes, but you still got to pay your rent. So who can you pull the wool over your landlord's eyes?
I wish.
Yeah. And it's like the first question I asked, what's the best thing for a human being? I got that from Wilhelm Reich. He said the best thing for a human being is another human being. And the last question is, what gives you the most optimism? That's what they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life. And he said, other people.
Yeah.
So it's sure been fun spending this time with another person. Gabriel, what a pleasure. I do want to do a whole podcast of Robert Anton Wilson. We could do it just me or you, and or bring in a few of your Bob scholars. I know there's a lot of people who you probably studied to get deep into revealing what Robert Anton Wilson was all about, but more so is just like, who in the heck are you? And this has been amazing. You really revealed a lot to me. I learned so much. I thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you very much too, Jerry. I appreciate, the questions. This was a lot of fun. It's nice to get this ping pong back and forth, man. I really enjoyed it.
I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, but I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever.
Nice.